My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 29 years old, and I've been called many things, but the one I'll never forget is mumbled at the edge of a party just loud enough for the laughter spread through the room like poison in champagne. "She's just a waitress," I said. My mother told me she didn't know I was 10 feet behind her with the tray of smoked salmon bites. There was too much talk about other people to notice how that one night changed everything. To really understand what happened next, when I got there in a Rolls-Royce in the morning, the manager greeted me with, "Welcome back, boss. You need to know what happened before. I quit my MBA school when I was 25 years old to take care of. My grandma raised me while my parents were too busy trying to get ahead in business and social circles. They went on trips and built an empire. Grandma Joan packed my lunches for school and read me stories at night. Showed me that being kind wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of strength. When she got sick, my parents told me to put her in a home, but I couldn't. So I went back to my hometown and got a job at Delaney's, working as a carer during the day and waiting tables at a nice restaurant in town at night. It wasn't exciting, but it paid the bills. But it also gave me a front row seat to the kind of power there were games that my family loved. My mom, Carol Morgan, ran a local PR company. Perfect white dresses, high heels, and even better smiles. My dad, Harold, was a partner in a logistics business. My younger sister, Vanessa, had just proposed to the son of one of my dad's friends, business partners. That engagement party was the most fun event of the last month, and it looks like I wasn't invited. Technically, Vanessa had said, You are welcome to come by after work, Ra. You don't have to get dressed up." That should have been the first sign that I shouldn't have gone, but I did. I left work at 7:45 p.m., while still in uniform, and walked the 3 blocks to my folks' house. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I did this to thank my sister. I gave her a small gift. As a child, Grandma Joan told me she loved this old pendant. I walked in. I used to come in through the side door when I lived there. The house hadn't changed. It was still as shiny and clean. I walked towards the garden under the same sparkling chandelier in the hallway. That's when I heard it. "She's just a waitress, my mom," whispered, her voice sweet with fake worry. "I mean, it's really sad." A chorus of polite laughter greets her as she serves food for tips. She added, "I won't be here for long." She said she might stop by. I prayed that she wouldn't bring one of those terrible trays. I stood there frozen in place because I hadn't brought a tray, but I might as well have. When I got outside, walked out onto the deck, a few people looked around. My mom's smile got stiff like plastic. Vanessa blinked as if she didn't know who I was, and my dad stayed away from me. I gave Vanessa the small gift wrapped in paper and said, "Congratulations." Even "oh" was said in a strange way. "Thank you. You didn't have to. We weren't sure you'd make it, and neither was I." It was too quiet after that, so I left 15 minutes before the first toast. No one tried to stop me. That night I was by myself in my small apartment above the bakery. The pendant box was sitting on the kitchen table, lid not open. It had been 3 months since my grandmother died, and I was by myself for the first time ever that night. It wasn't just the shame or the pain of hearing my mother's voice that changed. I made up my mind. I was done being quiet and letting them define me. They didn't know that I wasn't just a waitress. I had started a side business during those times. Long nights after work. And secret blog about running a restaurant and profitable. That blog post went viral in some circles. Investors got in touch. Deals were made. And 3 weeks later, the day before that party, I became the main partner in the company that owned Delaney's. I owned the restaurant where I used to wait tables, but I hadn't told anyone yet. That was about to change. I changed and went to Delaney's the next morning in a charcoal trousers suit and boots. With a small fire going in my eyes, I got out of a fancy rental car that had been sent to me for impact. As I got into the Rolls-Royce Phantom, It purred like a cat in the morning sun. The manager, Philip, stepped forward and smiled on the curb. "Welcome back, boss." When I walked into my own business, I knew that by noon my whole family would know. I knew exactly who I was by 9:15 a.m. Small talk had begun to spread under shiny marble tables and espresso machines. People who used to work with me were now realizing something had changed. The woman they used to work late shifts with was now signing their "Did she buy a DeLorean?" I thought she was just a cook. No. "Did you see the car I heard about?" I heard the whispers, but didn't change how I looked as I walked through the restaurant, like I had done it 1,000 times before. But now the air around me had changed. Respect, confusion, and even curiosity a little scared Philip. The general manager walked next to me with his notebook in his hand, against his chest. "The staff room is full. Are you ready?" I agreed. "Let's not keep them waiting." He led me past the kitchen, where cooks were working, stopping in the middle of getting ready to look at me, and into the staff room, where about a dozen people were waiting. Some were old friends like Jess, with whom I used to split tables on Friday nights, and Louise from the back of the house. Even Yvonne, the waitress with the sharp teeth who once told me I was too smart to serve food when I walked in. She raised an eyebrow. Philip cleared his throat. "Coming in early, everyone. We have a big news story to share this morning. Delaney's changed last month. Ownership." There was shock in the room, and I kept my hands folded in front of me. I saw Philip looking calm, showed me and said, "Welcome to your new majority owner and executive director, Rachel Morgan." There was dead quiet. Jess's eyes got big. Luis let out a low whistle, which made Yvonne's jaw drop. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Hi. I know this is a surprise. Some of you know me as a server. Some of you may only know my name from the list, but for the past 2 years, I've been working in silence on making something bigger, letting the tension build up. After that work, I now own this business outright and 2 other places in the metro area. But Delaney's is the most famous. We're making some changes today. All pay are going up by 8%. Wellness incentives are being added, and everyone here will now get bonuses based on work and team success. There were gasps and muttering. But more than that, I kept my voice steady, I said. Jess put her hand over her mouth. "I want this restaurant to become what it could have been from the start. A place that cares about people, not just making money. From your point of view, I know what it's like to work on your birthday because rent's due. I know what it's like to smile while people talk badly about you." "That's it." Luis raised his hand. Slowly, "So you really own this place now?" I smiled. "Yes, I do, and I plan to make it mine." "Better," Jess laughed softly. "My mom will never believe this," she said. "Does not believe you are bizzing tables." Yvonne stood slowly. "All those nights, we thought you were just another burned-out graduate school failure. I told you the truth. I had a plan, too." She looked at Philip for a moment, and then back at me. "You're the boss. My name is Rachel, but I'm also the boss." It was weird to stand there in that room where I used to fit in with the background. I wasn't mad. I wasn't there to get even. My family would soon know because my mother had died at 11 a.m., booked a private dining room for a client lunch at Delaney's. She didn't know. I looked at Philip and said, "Let's make sure everything is fine. I'll be at that lunch." He nodded with a sly grin on his face. The room was clean by 10:45 a.m., according to the course boss. Carol Morgan, PR, had thought of everything. White sheets, shiny glasses, a menu with the client's name on it, and so on. I stood just behind the darkened glass wall, out of sight, as my mother walked in wearing her signature powers. Wear a suit and shoes that made you look important. She didn't see me yet. She was too busy barking orders at Marcus, the waiter, who was trying hard not to roll his eyes. "Get my usual," he said. "Don't bother anyone." She snapped at the table. 10 minutes later, her customer showed up. A woman wearing a clean blue blazer and pricey pearls. They fake smiled and kissed each other in the air. While I was sitting down, my mom leaned in close and whispered something. I heard it again right away. She's just a waitress, my mom. Older daughter was smart but easily upset, so all the waiting was for nothing. This time I smiled because I knew in less than 5 minutes I was going to walk through that door, sit down at the head of the table and say hello. I'm not her daughter. I'm the new executive head of Delaney's. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when she found out the waitress now owned the I watched them through the frosted glass as my mother stood tall and straight. Performance, moving her hands elegantly and smiling all the time. She was in her element and very charming. A new client showing off her rank and making fun of anyone who didn't fit her idea of Rachel Phillip whispered behind me, "Are you sure you want to do that? Did you write this yourself?" I said yes. It has to be me. He smiled proudly. Then go. Knock them out. I walked into the private dining room at exactly 11:07 a.m. There was silence as the door opened, and I heard my shoes hitting the polished floor. My mom looked up, ready to scold a server for interrupting, but she didn't. Froze, and so did the client. I quietly stepped forward and put out my hand to the woman across from her. "Hello, my name is Rachel Morgan, and I operate Delaney's and are the main owner of Morgan Hospitality Group. I wanted to personally welcome you and thank you. Thanks for having dinner with us." The customer blinked and then stood up to shake my hand. Well, that's an honor I didn't expect. My mom finally found her voice. "What the heck are you doing here running the business, Rachel?" I asked. "Didn't Phillips tell you that Delaney had changed owners? I'm now in charge of everything." I wasn't angry. Professionalism. My mom's mouth opened and closed, and she gave a fake smile. As reality set in, the customer turned to her and said, "This is your daughter. You didn't do anything." "Say that she owned the business." My mom laughed weakly. "Well, Rachel has done a lot of business, but I didn't know she owned this one." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't know because you never asked." There was a long pause, and a big pregnant woman spoke. Everyone seemed to take a moment to take in the change of power. I pointed to the menus and said, "Enjoy your lunch. The cook has made some specials for you, and today everything is free." The guest smiled and said, "Thank you, Miss Morgan. That's very kind of you. You're welcome." I left the room without looking back, but I didn't need to. "If you need anything, I'll be right outside." I could feel the stress building behind me like a pot about to burst. Philip gave me a fresh latte in the hallway. "You good better than good?" I said. A sip. I think she's finally lost her words, but it wasn't over yet. As that night went on, Vanessa texted me, "Dinner at Mum and Dad's at 6:30. It sounds like we need to talk about something." I almost ignored it, but something in me, a flash of the old Rachel who still wanted to be noticed, told me to leave. At 6:25, I pulled into the Again. This Rolls-Royce was not the same as the one I had borrowed that morning. I had bought it with cash. Cash. The sun was setting, leaving long golden streaks on the familiar yard of a suburban home. The house looked it was the same as always. It had white doors, blue hydrangeas, and that there used to be a perfect red front door that made you feel welcome. Now it just looked like a stage. Inside, everyone was already there, and Vanessa was looking through her phone on the couch. Through her phone, my dad stood by the fireplace with a drink in his hand, and my mom, she was moving. When she saw me, she stopped. "They could have warned us," she said straight out. "Would it have made a difference?" I asked as I set my keys. "Hold it together." "You embarrassed me," she snapped in front of a big client. "No," I told them. "You embarrassed yourself by lying about who I was." It was true. My dad raised his hand. "Let's not fight. Carol, please sit down." Vanessa finally looked up, but she didn't want to. So you really own Delane's now? I do, in 2 more places, and we'll be opening a 4th next spring. My mom laughed. Gentle with how much money I had from my blog and private coaching some smart people who believed in me before my family did. Why didn't you tell us? My dad asked quietly. I just shrugged. You never did. Heard. Why would this have been different? My mom's lip curled. So what? Is this a show to get back at us for being wrong? No, I said, standing up straighter. This is me, living the life I made for myself without your approval, but today made it clear what you think doesn't define me anymore. Vanessa slowly nodded. Respect. It was the next best thing to I'd ever heard her say nice things about me. My dad cleared his throat. Well done. Rachel, that's quite an accomplishment. I didn't answer because, well, I didn't need their approval anymore. I stood in the living room of the people who used to put me down. The first time I wasn't angry was when I saw them writhe in the shadow of their own assumptions. I was free. 2 days went by. Before I heard from my mum again, "Are you free for coffee just now?" I looked at the message for a long time, not sure if it was a way to make peace or a trick. We hadn't had a real one-on-one talk in a while. Talk in more than a year. Even after Grandma Joan died, my mom was all procedures. Funeral plans, seating charts, and menu choices are not sadness. Still felt like I should go. We met at a cute little cafe in downtown. She always liked the kind with all white marble and glass. It was pricey but simple. Was the first to arrive. She was 3 minutes late as usual and sat across from me without a word. Her coffee order was hard to understand. Mine was black, of course. There was more weight between us than there used to be. She took a sip and set the cup down. You didn't just buy a restaurant, she said quietly when she finally gave in. I didn't say anything. I just looked up the blog she wrote. I didn't even know you wrote that. You never asked. There was a long pause. I guess I didn't. The way her eyes looked made her look older than I remembered. Something inside her was beginning to fray. She looked at me again, this time uncertain. I felt vulnerable in a way. Had never seen any of it. Why didn't you tell me, Rachel? I tried a dozen times. A lot of the time, you'd cut me off and change the subject. It was easier not to try. She slowly let out a breath and looked into her cup. I was trying to keep her safe. What did you fail at? She finally met my eyes and asked. Shame for wasting your life on ideas that didn't make sense to us? Didn't make sense to you, I said. They were wrong, but they made sense to me. I know that now. There was another pause. This time, I let it happen. Sit down and let her feel the pain I had been carrying for years. That made me feel even worse. Your grandmother would be proud. I told her to keep quiet because she was the only person who never doubted me. My mom told me we believed in things we didn't understand, and now I wish I had paid more attention to her. It wasn't a full apology, but it was close. She stirred her coffee again. Your dad and I didn't know how to support something we couldn't tamp down. We taught you to stick to a plan. When you went off track, we got scared and judged you. Yes, she said to her credit. We sat in silence for a while, the noise of the cafe, around us like static. Then she asked something I didn't expect. Would you ever think about working as a consultant for my agency? Blinked. What's new in PR? Digital strategy, telling stories with your skills. Please help us, and I'd rather hire you than another expensive company that doesn't get it. It wasn't just a peace offering, it was finally respect spoken out loud. Thought about it. Let me think, she said. Of course. And then she reached for her purse. She took out a small satin box and slid it towards me as she put it on the table. What's this? I found it in Joan's. Things after she died. She told me it was meant for you, so I slowly opened it. was a delicate gold chain with a locket on it. I knew it right away. I wore it every Sunday. I opened it and saw a small picture of me when I was 5 years old, and a folded piece of paper that I carefully opened up in Grandma Jones. In her handwriting, she wrote, "Never forget what you can do, even when they—" I couldn't hold back tears as I closed the locket and held it tight in my hand. She always saw you. When my mom said, "Even when we didn't," I nodded. "She left me the house," I replied. "I know I'm going to keep it, fix it up, and maybe even turn it into a artistic retreat for young women who want to start over." She smiled a little. It sounds like something she would have loved. We were sitting there quietly, the air a little less tense, the space between us a little less rough. Maybe it was never about winning in the first place. It was about choosing to become more, to show others they're wrong, and to show yourself you're right. 2 weeks later, Vanessa got married in a fancy ceremony at a farm outside of the city. Picture chandeliers hanging from trees and pop music played by violin quartets. Big centerpieces that made it hard to see across the table were what my mom was talking about. People in her group chats talked about it as the event of the season. I stayed out of the planning process because I stopped asking to be a part of things. I wasn't really allowed to be a part of them until I got the invitation in the mail. It was official and embossed in gold foil. Vanessa wrote in a note, "I know we've been apart, but I want you to know that you matter even when I don't say it. Love V. Dot." It wasn't dramatic or sad, but it was real. So I went. This time, I didn't sneak in without being seen. I pulled up in my own car. After ending a multi-year consulting deal with a company, Rolls-Royce stopped renting cars and bought them the week before. They are a restaurant business group from Chicago. They found me through my blog and wanted to buy into my brand. The first meeting was meant to last 30 minutes, but it went on for 5 hours. The deal they made with me changed my life again. As I left the car wearing a navy silk dress and classic shoes, people began to whisper. They were polite, but they were interested. "Is that her?" Rachel Morgan. I hadn't been to a family event in years where people weren't making quiet judgments behind glasses. Philip, this time, was different. My boss had set up a small team. To help with, I was in charge of food for one of the side businesses I had just bought. Met me at the valet with a smile and a nod. "Everything's going well, boss," I said. "Thank you." And she added, "Make sure the bride's cake gets set up early." He gave me a fake salute and then fled into the crowd. He was nervous about the pictures. Was lovely. Vanessa looked wonderful, and I really meant it as I watched her walk down the aisle. I didn't feel jealous or angry. Instead, I felt at peace. She had done what was expected of her. For her, and it fit her. I made my own, and it fit me. At the airport, I found a place at one of the main tables. Not off in the corner like in the past, and wasn't buried in the crowd. Area behind the gift table. My dad's place card was right next to mine. He slightly raised his glass to say hello. "Glad you came," he said. "Wouldn't miss it." My mother hovered nearby. Making greetings and small talk, but every once in a while I caught her watching, by myself not to judge, not even to compare. A family friend leaned across the table from Carol in the middle of dinner to watch. "Tells us that you own that downtown diner now, Delaney's." I said yes. "Please say yes," and a few others. "We're growing next year." "That's great." Parents must be so proud of their kids. My dad smiled when he saw that. The first time I thought he meant it. Later that night, Vanessa took me aside. We stood under a tree that was lit up with fairy lights. The grapevine looked like it was from a dream. "Hey," she said. "Thanks for coming," they said. "You didn't have to invite me," I told them. "I like what you did." She looked at her bouquet, and then back at me. "I heard what Mum said at the engagement party. That caught me off guard." "You did." "And she didn't know I was close, but I had no idea things got that bad between you and them." "I'm sorry. I told them it wasn't their fault." but she said she let them talk about her like that. I should not have let you get lost. Now, I do. I sighed. You're mine. That's more important right now. She laughed softly, and I told Daniel. The person I was most afraid to introduce you to because my sister could bargain better than everyone else in his boardroom if she tried. I laughed along with her. I hope I never have to laugh again. Then she got serious, and I admire her. I've always loved you, Ra, even when your choices. Thanks, I said, but the words stuck in my throat. That means more. Then you know the DJ changed the music behind us happy, and the dance floor called out, "Are you coming?" "Yes," I answered. When you're ready." We walked back towards the crowd as two sisters, even ground, not because we both chose the same road, but because we finally chose to get along with each other. After 3 months, I stood on the porch of Grandma Jones's old house. Again, it was moving up the columns, and the shutters needed to be painted. But the porch swing still made noise, the same way it did when I was 10 years old and my legs were too short to reach the floor. It felt like you could train your resilience. It was the first weekend of repairs, and the house was now mine. Officially turned over the keys with hand-drawn, plans showing what I was making it into. I've always imagined it as a place where artistic women could go to start over, who had been ignored, snubbed, or undervalued, just like I had been. The builders were coming the next day, but I wanted to spend one night here by myself first, to feel the energy of the I looked for a place to say goodbye to old ghosts and hello, to new things. Through the room, running her fingers along the worn-out wallpaper. The dining table where grandmother taught was still there. The place where I once cried over failing a test and where she told me that didn't define me. It felt right to start over here. As the sun went down behind the hills, it cast a golden glow across the hardwood. I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was my dad. I met him at, "Thought I'd find you here," he said, holding a paper bag that, he said, "I figured you'd call first," and the smell of takeaway was faint. "Brought your favorite Thai from that little place you used to beg us to try as a surprise," I said. He came in. We ate at the old table, on the same chairs that were still shaking. They didn't say much small talk. They just chewed their food and occasionally looked at each other. But when the food was gone and after a long pause, he spoke. "You were always meant for more." I looked up and said, "That's not what you used to say." He said, "I know," and I was shocked. I was wrong. I thought more meant high-level jobs and titles. That could mean freedom, vision, or making something from the ground up. I thought about that for a while, and then I asked, "Why?" "Now?" He sighed and said, "Because I've been thinking about how we raised you. We used to ignore things that didn't look like they belonged. We thought success came in one form, but you showed us that it doesn't." I took a deep breath and sucked hard, because I felt an emotion building in my chest. I was proud of Vanessa because I knew what to do. But I'm proud of you because you didn't and still made it. It was what I had been waiting for since the first time I worked as a waitress and felt bad about myself because of it. "Thank you," he smiled. We sat in silence again. This time it was warm. "You're really going to make this place a getaway for women, right? Who have been put down, talked down to, or made to feel small and need a fresh start? Your mom told me that it was the most important thing you'd ever done." I raised an eyebrow. She said that he laughed. "She did. She's changing. Too slowly, it's hard for her to be wrong." "Agreed. It was hard for me too," he said. "But healing starts somewhere." Picked up a picture of Grandma Joan from the mantel in the living room. She would be pleased, as she always was. Later that night, after he left, I went outside and stood on the grass without shoes. The moon was low in the sky, and the air was cool, was heavy with the smell of lilacs. I looked up at the house, paint falling off all over, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I no longer wanted anyone to clap for me or tell me I was right. In places where people used to make fun of me, I had grown into the woman my younger self needed. I wasn't perfect, but I was whole. And when I stood there, I would tell those women, who would one day be guests at this retreat, you are not just a waitress, or an office worker, a divorcee, a mum on your own, or a woman starting over. More than the names they gave you, and your path is valid and powerful just like mine.